Twins left. Check zone. Check zone. All right, we're going to get Brown. 570. Wide curl on 2.
4-3 stab smash strong. Open cannon, Mike Pop. Hello and welcome to In the Huddle. I'm your host, JT Thomas, broadcasting live from Saberton Station. I'm here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. If you don't catch me here, make sure you check me out at thedpost.com. Again, I'm always here, so come check me out. And I got some surprises for you for all those who watch us online. Guys, we're here. I want to start off with my guests. Got some new guests in the house. My good friend, I want to start off to my right, my good friend, Ed Green, former Mountaineer, offensive lineman, 1994 to 1998. We have, on my left, good friend and co-host, Gary Tompkins, 1994 to 1999. And my big guy over here, Avery Big Tone Richardson, as we so affectionately call him.
Absolutely.
1991 to 1992.
That's right.
Hey, gentlemen, let's go ahead and break the huddle. Guys, we had a chance to watch the Mountaineers this past weekend play against Oklahoma State Cowboys. Yeah. This game was a game that we kind of felt that it was something that was going to give us some more insight on what type of team we had after coming off a loss to Oklahoma. Game started off not as good as we had hoped. Sure. However, it was what it was. Coach Gundy, 2-1 against Coach Holgerson. We felt like we could have done better in this game. Gary, let's talk about what happened early on, or what were some of the things that just didn't start right for the Mountaineers.
First off, I think that the performance that I watched this season, or at least for the last game, was a bit abysmal, and I think it carried over from the Oklahoma game. What I noticed during the Oklahoma game is that the Mountaineers were not prepared, not defensively, and it didn't even seem as though they had it together offensively. Coming into the OSU game, I felt like a lot of that carried over. We saw during the first half, they just weren't prepared to play, and they didn't get ready to play until late in the second half.
Okay. Yeah. Tone, follow up on where are we, Tone, on that first half of Mountaineer against OSU?
You know what? It was a funny game, and I watched that game, and I thought we played well at times, but ball security became an issue. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I don't care how good you are, you got to maintain and hold on to the ball. And, we kind of gave them an early score, got them into it. We gave it up several times on the short side of the field. So, that really hurt us and that put us behind. We tried to come back. We got the game in overtime, but unfortunately we was unable to pull it out.
Right. Yeah. Ed, what we got, bud? What do we think about that first half?
Well, that first half, our brand of football here at WVU is to come out and step on the ball immediately. And to see them come out so flat in the first half, that was a little bit painful to see. It wasn't until the third and fourth quarter that we started to see a little bit of Mountaineer football. But again, ball security, like Tone was saying, you can't win when you turn over the ball like that. Right. You just can't, especially in big games. And from the very beginning, from the very first kickoff, you got to be ready to play at 110%. Right. And I'm not sure why they came out flat. I mean, that was one of the biggest games of the season, especially coming off of that loss previous week to Oklahoma. You would think that the mental attitude would be different. But it was just surprising to see him come out just kind of lackadaisical.
Right.
Flat. And I honestly, I think we were the better team.
Right. The deal is, there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of conversation that went on about losing Carl Joseph. During that week, we lost him. He's going into homecoming week, and we're without our leader. We're without our leader. However, we all know as former ball players that the mentality has to be the next man up.
That's right.
I'm looking for my opportunity, and when you get that opportunity, we got to exploit it. I mean, former players, we know it's important to have that mentality, and there's no excuses, regardless of who if we lost our leader or not. We got to be able to go out there and play football. Gary, we've been there before. Talk about, the mentality of a former player and why it's so important for them to take every game, especially homecoming. This is homecoming. That we just did not come out like the Mountaineers normally do.
We have a running theme over the last few weeks. The first 2 games we had a team that unfortunately didn't look well prepared. We looked good because we could put up 30, 40 points against teams that were not very good. Then we come out against Oklahoma and they run us off the field in a team against a team that really we should have been up for. We're playing a top-notch team. We're coming to your town. We're #1 defense. Then we come back home. We have a chance to redeem ourselves on our home field at homecoming.
Right.
And although we don't have our star player with us, even though we don't have our leader on defense, we still have #1 defense.
Right.
We still have athletes that can make plays at linebacker and at defensive back. And unfortunately, we had guys that just didn't show up. If all we have is called Joseph, then we're going to have a very hard season.
Right.
And being a player that comes up and says, you know what, it's my turn, you can't wait because you want to show people, hey, there's somebody else sitting back here. Yeah. He's not the only one. I want to show you guys what I can do. And if you have a bunch of players around you that are star quality, then you have no problem going in there and shining.
I agree. Tom, let me switch gears because I got a question I want to ask you. Now, we've seen this before. We've seen this show before.
Yes, sir.
Right? When you think back to Clint Trickett the year before, right? His senior year he did quite well, but the year before that, right, he had come into a new offense. It was Holgorsen offense, kind of new to him. He struggled a little bit, right? Once he got a hold of that offense and took ownership of it, he did well his senior year. So I say that to say that we've seen this movie before. We should not be so alarmed to the point that we're abandoning ship. So, Tone, you tell me, what do you think in terms of the offense coming along to this point, and what it's going to take for us to realize, hey, we're in a situation where we're starting to get there, but we're not there quite yet.
And that's a very good point, JT. You know, as I look at this offense, you know, we were able to run the ball, which I like. You know, we were able to run the ball. It came down to we had some very costly turnovers. You know, Skylar Howard, he's our guy. And, you know, we have to support him. I think we talked about this last week when they said, when do you pull him or when did the other guy come in? Well, right now, he is our guy because our #2 guy is running the ball. Right. So, you know, that's a question for me I don't understand right now. But as far as us moving forward and getting better, we got to score points.
Right.
This Big 12, I don't care how good your defense is, Big 12 won't score points.
Right.
It's just, that's what it is. We have to do a better job of play calling. And I'm not here to question Coach Holgorsen, as me and Gary Thompson talked outside. I'm not an offensive guy. I'm a defensive guy. But I do watch football. You know, sometimes we're getting behind the chains. We're getting in 3rd and longs, and you know, we're getting ourselves in trouble. So we got to come out here with this team that we're going to play this Saturday. They're going to have a little payback. We did beat them last year. Yeah. We're coming in their building at noon. We better come out ready to play because let me tell you, they score points.
Right.
And I don't think we're that team right now. If we get behind, can we come back? You know, quickly. We don't have that quick striking ability. We did throw the ball down the field. You know, we got Gibson open on some plays, and Smallwood I thought ran very well. But it's just something that's just not there, JT.
Right.
I just don't know what it is right now. Just something's not there. Maybe Ed can.
I want to, and in fact, I got a question for Ed because Ed is our second offensive guy. Ed, let me throw something at you. Exactly. So Ed, so as Tone mentioned, statistically, we did well.
Right.
Total yardage, we had 443 yards versus Oklahoma State, who had 362.
Right.
Last week against Oklahoma, we had some issues with blocking from a line perspective. Yes, this year, the offensive line was much improved. This past game, much improved. Ed, what does it take in terms of quarterback getting on the same page as offensive line, quarterback getting on the same page as his receivers? What does it take from an offensive standpoint to get the Mountaineers to next week's game?
I think it's just a mental adjustment. We've got the tools. We've got receivers, we got offensive linemen, we got running backs, one of the best in the country, and we got a quarterback. And to echo a little bit what Tony was saying, you know, I think it's really important that we stand behind our quarterback right now. He's a little shaken up, and he is going through a growing pain, and everybody has to realize that. But if you notice, we're just off by a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's just not clicking, and a lot of times people who haven't played the game at this level, or even in the high school level, don't understand the timing that goes into throwing a route. You know, it's a lot of times those routes are really quick, and the quarterback's throwing it blind on where you should be, so on and so forth. So I think these guys have to just kind of get together on a mental status. Everything else is there. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to be. They're trained up, they're conditioned, they're ready to play ball. I just think that they're just off, and I think it's just the mental piece to the game that's missing right now. And next week, they're going against one of the baddest teams in the country.
Right.
And you want to come out gunning slow, and then you can forget it. And which brings us to the whole offensive piece. I think our offense has been a little bit conservative, and maybe they're just worried about throwing too much at Skyler. Okay, that could be it, because we do have the offensive repertoire to air this thing out. I think at this point, Dana just needs to do that. Just let it go.
Right. You said a key word, and I wanna switch back over to Gary, because I know Gary just hates when we throw that screen route.
That's why we play football. I'll be honest with you.
So when I
short side of the field.
Exactly. So when I saw that, you know, we were taking some shorts here and there. But as you mentioned, Ed, you know, there may be some reservations in terms of, okay, the last couple of weeks we had some trouble with accuracy. We had some trouble with turnover in terms of long passes and interception. That they might be trying to build Skyler's confidence by throwing those hitch routes. But Garrett, what does it get us? I mean, what do we do? You don't like the screen pass. We're having trouble with the long ball. How do we move that ball down the field?
You get the ball to Smallwood. You keep handing the ball off to him. You see every game he comes out, he's having a fantastic first half.
Yeah.
He's popping all of his runs, and he seems hungry and thirsty for the ball. So some of the times I don't understand why we stop giving him the ball, why we make the switch when he's hot.
Right.
Again, I'm not going to question coaching or anything like that. Just from a fan standpoint, from an ex-player making an observation, that's something that I feel like we should do more of. We should go ahead and dominate and run the game when it's dominated.
Yeah.
We saw some of that. We saw some problems with the offensive line the first two games. And then the last couple of games seemed like we had some spots where they sort of stepped up. I would like to see what our team is like 5 minutes before kickoff, 5 minutes before they walk out of the locker room. Because what I see is a lot of mental mistakes.
Right.
The number one defense giving up 2 touchdowns passing-wise against Oklahoma. Both, from what I see as an ex-defensive back, as blown coverages.
Yeah.
Guys wide open, running down the field. And then you come back in against Oklahoma State, and we seem like we're just not there. And again, we keep talking about them being flat. So if they're flat, then I wonder what's happening in the locker room. Is there some restriction on what music you're playing? Is there some restriction on how you get ready for the game? Is there some restriction on how you get your mind right? Or are you just hanging around playing and thinking that I'm just going to sit here and chill in the game out there and I'll show up when it's time? Yep. So I like to see what's happening there, and I like to see what's going on a few minutes before kickoff.
Yeah.
That'll tell me a lot about our team.
You know, and I like to piggyback on that as well. I think I like to see us make some easy throws. Right. You know, I'm still a guy. Where's the tight end at now?
Right.
I mean,
we got a tight end.
Yeah, I mean, Cody Clay. I mean, this guy being forever. You know what I mean? You know, it'd be nice. Everyone tells me in the NFL that the tight end is the quarterback's best friend.
Yeah.
You know, dink and dunks. You know, get him, warmed up a little bit. Get 6 or 7 yards. You know, change the defense up a little bit because you're hitting your tight end who's probably going to be open down the field or in the middle of the field. Let him get comfortable with the flow of the game with some easy throws before we start cranking it up and going deep. I watch a lot of football, man, and I see a lot of quarterbacks getting rhythm when they make some little dinks and dunks. Yeah. They feel good, they feel better about themselves. They get the offense going. The offensive linemen don't have to hold their blocks very long because it's kind of a quick throw.
Right.
So, maybe some little, passes out to the running back in the flat. Little things, to get him going. Because what I'm seeing is a lot of deep balls downfield, and those are 50-50 balls. You know what I mean? And then when you don't complete them, now it's time to punt.
Yeah.
So, that's my concern.
That's a great place for me to break in here to start me a trivia question. But and listen, that might be my trivia question. Where is the tight end?
Who is the tight end?
Yeah, do we have any?
But let me get right to it, guys. We're going into our trivia question. I just want to remind everybody, we're here every Wednesday here at Saberton Station. And if we're not here, you make sure you go check us out at thedpost.com. During this time, this is where we like to give away stuff, and I got one of these cozies. So if you're interested in grabbing one of these cozies, make sure you pay very close attention to the trivia question that I have. I want to know who was the first person to score a Mountaineer touchdown this past game. To be acknowledged, please raise your hand. The first person to score for the Mountaineers this past weekend. First person to score. All right, I'll do it like I always do. I typically like to make these multiple choice questions. Was it Shelton Gibson? Was it Javon Durant?
Okay.
Was it Kyle Rose? Or was it Skylar Howard? Take a guess. Take a guess. Yes, sir. We got a hand.
Gibson.
Gibson is the incorrect answer. The first person to score a point for the Mountaineers this past game. The first point scored this past game. The first point scored. It's either Kyle Rose, Shelton Gibson, Javon Durant, or Skylar Howard. The first point scorer. Well, I'll give you another hint. The score was. Yes.
Skylar.
Skylar is incorrect.
Now you're down to 2.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Now you're down to 1.
The first point was 2 points. The first points we scored.
The
Kyle Rose.
Kyle Rose.
Kyle Rose.
There we go. Nose guard.
Yes, ma'am. Kyle Rose scored a safety, which gave us 2 points for our first score. So, sir, you win your cozy. And for all of those who tried, we're going to make sure we give you cozies also. So everybody's a winner when you come down to Saberton Station. Great job, guys.
Right. It's like little
I made that extra hard.
Everybody gets trophy.
Good job. Oh, okay. We'll work it out. Again, guys, to get this kind of excitement, you got to come down here to Saberton Station. Every Wednesday, we start at 6 o'clock, so make sure you come down here and check us out. But let's jump back into the game because we got a lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
A lot to talk about. And as Tone just mentioned, I think back when you think about that tight end.
Yes, sir.
When the game got rough for us, the person that hurt us against the Oklahoma game in terms of the first person score was the tight end.
Tight end.
The dump
Yeah.
in the back of the end zone. I saw that same play this past week. So they're starting to play the tight ends more. However, for us, I think there's nothing about this ranked Oklahoma State, who's ranked 16th in the nation. There's nothing about this team, in my opinion, that made me believe it was going to be extra hard for us. So, Ed, tell me, Ed, with the exception of us leading in passing, leading us in total offense, we also led in the other statistic that I'm really not proud of, and that's penalties. There was a lot of penalties in that game. In fact, we were penalized more than 11 times for over 107 yards.
Wow.
Ed, how devastating can penalties be on a football team in a game this close?
It will debilitate you, and ultimately you will probably lose the game. I mean, you have to, it's a game of inches. It's a game of inches. Every inch counts. And you can't make silly mistakes that are fundamental.
Absolutely.
Things like, jumping off sides or holding penalties or things like that. This is a big game, and you cannot afford to lose yardage or field position off of making, mistakes like that. So you just got to cut it out. Again, it goes back to being mentally prepared. If you're not mentally prepared to play this game in our house or some other house on that level, then you're going to make mental mistakes. If you're unsure of yourself, you're going to make mental mistakes. If you're not comfortable, you're going to make mental mistakes. So going back to what Gary was saying, I'd like to see what's going on 5 minutes before.
That's a good call.
How are you preparing to get yourself mentally ready for this game? And that's what I saw. And that's what we saw in the first half is we saw some folks that just weren't keyed in. And then going back also to something that you were talking about our offense. Being an offensive guy, I know I'm sitting with 3 defensive guys right now. Rhythm is paramount.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And if you're on the offensive line, you want to just keep feeding that offensive line. You want to get them building up a head of steam. You want them in there pounding it. And to me, the way I equate it is almost like boxing. You know, we all like Rocky, okay?
Right.
Now, Rocky don't throw nothing but haymakers, uppercuts, and all knockout shots, okay? That worked well for Mike Tyson. But when we're talking about a 4-quarter game, you got the jab is the hand off that ball.
Right, absolutely.
You got to soften them up, and it keeps the D-backs honest, it keeps the linebackers honest. It also wears you down. Okay, so you keep jabbing, you get 3 yards, you get 4 yards. Maybe I'm old school because I think we all come from the 17-14 era.
Right.
You know what I mean? These numbers now are astronomical. But there was something to be said for wearing another team out and then going long with that ball.
Right.
So I really like the concept of dumping it off to the tight end. You know, I really like that. I really like those things. But I think, you know, the balance is a little off to me.
Right. Ed, you mentioned something, and I want to get back to Gary on this because I think both of you are onto something in terms of currently the number 1 rusher in the Big 12 is Shock Linwood out of Baylor.
Yeah.
The number 2 rusher in the Big 12 is Smallwood out of West Virginia.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So with that being said, to your point, we got to be feeding him more. We got to get him. He rushed for this is I believe the second time or third time.
Yeah.
He's going over 100 yards. Right. We got to find a way to get him the ball and get him more active in this. And so to Ed's point, we got to soften him up. And to your point, we got to run the ball more. How do we do that with Baylor moving forward?
Well, I said it last time I was here, and I think Tone is mimicking this. I believe football, linebackers, fullbacks, tight ends. If a part of that game is missing, if you don't want to put a fullback in the backfield, if you don't want to blind that extra lineman up and say, hey, let's play football, let's see what you're made of, then we have a problem. That tells me the toughness of your team. If there's no inside drill for your team, you don't have a tough team.
Can't be all skeleton.
If it's all skelly and you ain't down there period 12 and 13 doing inside, something's wrong. All right? Something wrong with your team, okay? And that's what we see here. I'm a little disappointed because the things that I'm looking at is that, as you say, it's a game of inches. We know we have talent here. We know we have players, but we keep missing the small things like a high pass across the middle, fumbling the ball, giving up a long pass with the number 1 defense. What this tells me is that you're not mentally prepared. And so it tells me that during the season, we're missing something. Whether the players aren't getting it or the coaches aren't giving it to them, but there's something missing during the week. Why is it that you can't identify certain sets, that they're maybe 80% one way, 20% another way? And it's disappointing to see because the guys are really, it's good talent, and I feel like it's going to waste.
Tone. Earlier during the broadcast a couple weeks ago, you said, I want to see defense. I want to see some defensive line.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And we're starting to see that a little bit more. The defensive line is playing a lot better. But we can't ask these guys to hold all game long or because they're going to break at some point. And that happened when you saw the quarterback escaping down the sideline on a 3rd and long. Talk about that, Tone.
You know, that really hurt us, matter of fact. You know, one thing that you and I talked about was pass rush, getting to the quarterback. You know, I understand the 3-3-5 philosophy, you know what I mean? You're going to be bringing guys from different areas, you know what I mean? But some guys got to beat their guys. I mean, one thing I remember Michael Strahan, I'm a Giant guy. I used to playing for the Giants. He used to say, you're going to get double teamed.
Right.
And that's just football. That's not an excuse.
Yeah.
You got to fight through that. You got to get there. We're just not getting there consistently.
Right.
And that's kind of disappointing. I go back to the 4-3s that we ran.
Right.
We had the big time pass rushes. Go to Gary Stills, go to Khalif Curtis, you go to Bruce Irving. You got to have that guy that say, you know what, go make a play.
Right.
Go get that guy. This guy was a statue to me.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can run this guy down.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, we got to find that pass rusher. Who's going to be that guy that's going to step up?
Who's going to step up?
Who's going to make that quarterback a little nervous?
Yeah.
And we're defensive guys, and you're offensive guy. And I know when you got the number 56, Lawrence Taylor, you got that guy over there. You want to know where he's at.
Yeah. All day.
Where's he at?
All
where's the
day.
boogeyman at? Where's he at? Because we got to block this guy.
Yeah.
They're not scared of it.
Yeah.
We don't have that guy. So therefore, we got to generate pass rush by blitzing. And I think that leaves us accessible to big plays.
Right.
In that backfield. So, I go back to Gary Tompkins. He reminds me of the guy we lost, Paul Joseph. Gary was back there with the other Barrett Green, those guys. They hit, but they played their keys, they played their responsibility. I thought overall we didn't play that bad.
Right.
But I'm perplexed because we didn't get the double.
Right.
So my question is, JT, where do we go?
Right.
We got to go to, I know we're going to Bell.
Right.
That's where we're going. Then we're going to turn around and go to TCU.
Yeah.
Well, how do we fix it?
Right. Good point.
How do we fix it?
So I look back and I look at the stats, and you're right to say Mason Randolph. Mason Randolph was 20 of 40 with 3 interceptions.
Wow.
So he wasn't a guy that should be beating our defense. Just not a guy should be beating it. In fact, he did not beat our defense. In fact, we beat ourselves.
Right.
When I sit back and I think about it in regard to turnovers, penalties, we end up beating ourselves. But guys, let me flip it over. I want to get off our offense a little bit, our defense a little bit, and talk about our offense and say how well they did in some of the positive notes. Tone, we were talking about, we were worried about the pass rush from the opposing team.
Yes, sir.
We talked about those 2 bookends that they had. But I have to say, Ed, our offensive line did a good job. We gave up one. It was only 1 interception.
Yeah.
So we kept Skylar as clean as we could. Then it was really up to Skylar to do his part.
Right.
And we'll get there. So I say that to say, Ed, we played well enough to win the ball game.
Absolutely.
But we as you mentioned, Tone, we didn't bring home the W. We got to fix that.
Right.
And I think that's going to be priority number 1. For organization, it'll be priority number 1 for Skylar Howard and the rest of the guys on that Mountaineer team. Guys, I'm going to take another break. Again, we do this every week. We're here at Saberton Station from 6 to 7. If you don't catch us here, you make sure you check us out at thedpost.com. Guys, I got a good question, easy question. Last week, our opponent put up some astronomical numbers. They played Kansas. So my trivia question to you tonight, what was the score of the Baylor versus Kansas game? Raise your hand if you have the answer. We have
7-66.
Ma'am, you are correct.
Oh.
Baylor has 66 points and Kansas had 7. You will win one of these cozies. You know what? Well, we got a few more things. We got a little football and a few things we'll give away. Well, you know what? And ticket, that's a good. Listen, who can somebody catch? I got something for you. You got a wide receiver over there? Here we go. I'm gonna throw it. You ready? Oh, we should recruit her.
That's not a bad throw for a defensive guy.
Each week, it gets better and better down here. We're here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. We're here at Saberton Station. Stay tuned. I got something for you later that might get your ticket. So keep after it.
She got the wrong shirt on. Clemson shirt on.
Oh.
Hey, it's all good. We just happy she came. Guys, again, we want to get back into this game. Now we're going to flip the script. We talked a whole bunch about Oklahoma State. We want to leave them in the past and get ready to move on because we got an opponent that we have to be geared up for. Gary, we talking about going down to Waco this week. playing against the #2 team in the country. What's the mindset of our guys in terms of recovering and getting back out there to face a giant like BU?
Well, if we got any kind of players, we got any kind of team, the guys have already called the team meeting. They've already called the huddle amongst the players, amongst senior leadership, and said we have to turn this around, and this is up to us. So at this point, I would hope that our team has spoken with each other, just as players, and say, hey, you know what? We don't care that Carl isn't here, or that 1 or 2 players might have had a bad game last week. This means our season, because if not, we become 2 and 3. Very difficult in the conference that we're playing in. And so their mindset has to be, let's go back to playing football, having fun with it, but doing what we need to do. Just protect the ball, let's protect our end zone, and let's play well on special teams. And just let the chips fall where they may at that point. Just play hard and get back to fundamental football.
Yeah, I have to say.
Yes, sir.
This
yes,
is
sir.
a big one, Tone.
Yes, it is.
How we
JT.
do it, Tone? On the road.
Man, JT, I'm concerned. I got to lie. I mean, I sat here with you for the last couple of weeks, man, and I was worried about this game because I look at this Baylor team, and one of the things they're going to do is they're going to load you with the run, make you think they're a running team. They're going to spread you out. They got 4 to 5 really good wide receivers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what they're going to try to find out, and Gary knows as a DB, we're trying to find out who's your weakest DB. And we're going to go out. That's what they've been doing. And this quarterback, this is his first year starting. I believe he's a junior. He's not much of a drop-off than the boy that's playing with the Jets now that they had there last year. So he can throw it. They got a big-time running back. You mentioned that this guy's leading the Big 12 in rushing. I think the biggest surprise that we're not talking about Baylor is their defense. Their defense is getting it done. So it's going to be a very tough game, but this is what I'm going to say. We have beaten them.
Absolutely.
Last year, and we can beat them. You know, we just got to come together. Everyone's playing on the same page. We're not a good enough team to overcome mental mistakes. The penalty game is killing us. This is the second game, and I'm looking at my stat book here that we had over 100 yards of penalty. Correct, JT?
Right.
So we got to limit that. You know, we have to limit that. We have to limit the turnovers and go out here and play Mountaineer football game, and I think we can be successful on Saturday.
I agree. Ed, we've seen this before. The thing about this is when the offense learns how, especially the offensive line, you know, they look at Baylor, obviously they're doing well, but when we, as a player, we take these games 1 week at a time.
1 week at a time.
Once it's over, it's over. So you're going to have some guys, as Gary mentioned, in the locker room saying, guys, we've done this before. We've been here before. We can do this upcoming Saturday. Ed, what will it be, or what will it take for those guys to kind of rejuvenate themselves and get after Baylor this Saturday?
Well, I think you have to take a moment and look at the realism of what's going on. You know, you came off of those 3 games in the beginning of the season, and we did exactly what we should have done. Okay, a lot of people were up on that, but I was just happy that we were where we needed to be. But when we started to get into the test phase of what our team was, there's some cracks in the armor, okay? But this is pure redemption. This week is redemption. It's all on the table. You can turn everything around with this win. You're going into a very hostile environment, and make no mistake, Baylor remembers what happened last year.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And they got something to prove next from what happened last year, because we rocked the boat a little bit with their record.
You know what? And you think about it. If they beat us, they're playing They're playing for the championship.
Right?
Am I right?
We are the hump they got to get over.
Right.
And they are not going to take us lightly. But I think what you said is that they needed to have that meeting. Say, listen, guys, this is what happened, but it's over with. We need to start looking forward. We need to get ready for Baylor. And honestly, preparation. Our tools are there. We have what we need to be able to beat them. But they have to go. They have to start believing. Don't start believing at game time. You need to be believing right now.
Right.
As I sit here and I think about this, I'm a little bit confused, because I think, do we have a good team or do we not? And I think by this time in the season, a lot of people have already answered that question. They know who they got. The first 2 games versus the last 2 games, you have 2 different teams, 2 different caliber. We're playing these first 2 teams at a low caliber, and we have what I feel to be mid-grade to upper grade talent that we played against in the last 2 weeks. So Who are the Mountaineers? Are we that team that does okay against subpar talent? Or are we the team that loses against anybody that's worth something? And so I feel like we're in the position that Maryland's at. This game, not the third game, but this game is going to tell us who our team is right now. Now we're at this sort of pivotal point in the season where we're like, who are you really? This is the real test game. Maryland's not the test game. This is the real test game because you're going to get real athletes. And I'm going to tell you something that I don't like as a defensive back. This is what I've tried to keep quiet, but I watch our defense. And I watch our defensive backfield. And for a couple of weeks in a row, even when I was young and I couldn't play and I didn't know what I was doing, I was hitting somebody. But the last thing I did was let a receiver come out there and push me around and chop block me and do all that kind of stuff. And I see some people out there letting that happen to them. And that's when I know they're not ready to play football. Because on defense, you are the intimidator. You are an enforcer. When number 80s, when people wearing 80s are punking you and pushing you around, you got a real problem. So I want y'all to stop that. All WVU secondary, please cut it out. You're bringing a bad name to us.
Hey, Gary put the challenge out there, and that's what we want to see next week.
Let me bring it back in perspective. As I mentioned, you know, guys, no way, at no point of mine, there's no justification in terms of how we perform on that field. We all go into the game and go into practice and understanding our role. It's important for us to execute. Let me just say this here in regard to the defensive side of us, for sure. We are a lot more aggressive. As I remember, and oftentimes I yell at the screen and I look at a linebacker, and the linebacker ain't coming downhill filling that gap. I got a problem. I got a real problem. You know that. And all I can do is think of my coach Dunlap saying, "Boy, get you if you don't get your in that gap right." So I just want to say to the fans, you know, we come across very passionate about this team, specifically defense. We don't like being scored on. Obviously, Ed wants to score points.
I like big numbers.
He wants to
really
score
big
points.
Numbers.
And when we don't do those things, we want to certainly come use this platform to say to our guys that, hey guys, we want you to go do what we know you can do. Tone will always critique that defensive line and demand the pass rush. If you have 3 linemen or if you have 5, a guy like Tone or a former player want to get sacks. And we're starting to do that. We're starting to do it. So I would continue to say, guys, let's continually tell our Mountaineers what we need to do. Guys, we're at that time again. Well, I want to make sure that I remind you guys to come out every Wednesday from 6 to 7. We're here at Saberton Station. But if you don't catch us here, and if you don't catch me online, but you will catch me online, I want you to email me. I want you to send us an email at inthehuddle@thedpost.com. Again, that's inthehuddle@thedpost.com. Panels. There are a few people that answered that call and sent us some emails that I think we gotta get ready for.
Okay.
Our first email comes from Eric DeBastiani, and this is his question. He says, each team is given 1 timeout in overtime. What do you think that the 4th and goal would be a good time for us to use that timeout? Each team is given a timeout. Do we think that 4th and goal would have been the right time for us to use that timeout?
I'll take that, JT. I tell you, it's all up to the coach and how you feel. It's easy to sit back the day after and say what we could have, should have done. You know what I mean, Ed? If you're feeling right, Hogerson felt like, we don't need a timeout. We don't need a timeout. Right. That's why he's the head coach, right? That's why he's the head coach. If he felt that the time clock was running down, guys a little discombobulated, didn't know where they was going, then I get that. But he's the head coach. He makes a lot of money. He makes these calls. It's up to the coach.
What you got, Ed?
I'd have to echo that. I mean, every situation, even though we may have the timeout to use, it may depend. It depends on what kind of momentum you got, how organized you are in that situation. Do we need the timeout? A lot of times you hurt yourself by taking the timeout because you give the defense time to adjust
Right.
and think it over. A lot of times you want to have them on their heels. So it's, again, when you're armchair quarterbacking and it doesn't work out your way, of course the opposite way is what should have worked, right? But when you're in the heat of battle, that's a split-second decision that a head coach that makes a lot more money than I do.
Right.
So I'm going to say
Gary?
this. 9 or 10 months ago, we were sitting here and everybody was questioning what Pete Carroll did against Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
And if he had not, if that play had worked without the timeout, then he would have looked like a genius against Bill Belichick and finally beat the New England Patriots. Instead, he didn't make the timeout call. They called the play that the players had seen, must have been 100 times in practice because he beat the receiver to the ball. And he was prepared for that.
Right.
So it's hard to say because either way, if the play works, no one questions that. If it doesn't work, then we all have the opportunity to question what he did. You the coach, that's your job, that's your responsibility to know how the team is moving along, how the game is flowing, and what you feel the right thing to do with it.
I agree.
Guys, I'm going to try to summarize that. I sum that up in a couple words. So I think I've heard that hindsight is 20/20.
Yes, 20/20.
Right? That's one say. So Eric, hindsight is 20/20. And the second thing I heard is that's above our pay grade. So, Eric, certainly want to thank you for sending in your email. Want to encourage everyone to always send in an email. But I'm going to move on to the next email. The email comes from Christy Zachary. And guys, this is a long one. This is a detailed one. I'm going to try to summarize, but I think it's a great point. Great point. Her email reads, "We seem to have extremely fast, athletic, and capable wide receivers. However, it also seems like they're having hard time keeping their routes because Skylar is having trouble with accuracy. The speed of receivers such as Gibson, Durant forces them to either have to slow down or practically stop their route in order to catch up inaccurate and catch up to an inaccurate Skylar Howard stroke. This also allows the D-backs to catch up and and ruin the play. If this is a problem that can be solved with some heavy coaching, or is this a fundamental issue for Skylar Howard? Is he coachable?"
Okay.
Good. Christy, that's a great question. Christy, Zach, a great question.
Absolutely, that is a very good question. And again, I'm a defensive guy. You know what I mean? So I really don't pay attention to what the offense is doing in practice. But as far as being a fan of football, you know what? It's not easy just to run a straight route and get open. These DBs are pretty good too.
Right.
Yeah.
They can run right along with them. I mean, they checking them off the line and things of that nature. So I think Skylar, he will get better.
Right.
You know what I mean? He will be able in time to make those throws. Receivers got to help him out. You know what I mean? They got to catch it. They got to get open for him. But it's how the scheme is. Sometimes they might try to double a guy and take him out the game, and you can't go to him sometimes. So that's a real good question. But it's something that I think Skylar will get better making that throw.
Okay. From an offensive perspective, I see the question that she's asking.
Right.
And one of the things that does really concern me about Skylar Howard is when he throws the deep ball, it's a high arc.
Right.
Okay, and a lot of times, I'm not down on him, a lot of times there's QBs that'll throw that high arc to compensate for not having the arm strength.
Right.
Okay, and I think he struggles with that if he doesn't plant his feet.
Right.
Now there are quarterbacks out there that can, on their back foot, throw 70 yards.
Right.
Mike Vick we played with him against him, and he's still throwing it like that.
Right.
But there's some people that aren't blessed with that innate arm strength that have to set into their fundamentals to be able to deliver a ball like that. And I think that's one of the defensive strategies that they have with Skylar is to get him out of that pocket and get him moving, because it greatly degrades his accuracy when he does that. So he has to either get better at throwing on the move, or he's going to have to learn how to sit in that pocket.
Right.
Because I do see a lot of routes that happen where we're doing those skinny posts and stuff, and they're smoking those DBs.
Right.
So I'm sorry, the defensive folks.
You're right.
They were catching them, but a lot of times those guys are running back for the ball. So I understand what she's saying. But again, I think it goes back down to fundamentals, and it comes down to really, honestly, confidence. You know, you have to have confidence in that pocket that's not going to crumble around you.
Right.
You know, you got to stand in there knowing that, okay, that left tackle has got my blind side. But if you start looking out of the corner like that, those split seconds are what would take you down.
Absolutely.
If you ask me, the whole equation is wrong, because what you have is asking if the quarterback's uncoachable. He is coachable. He's a Division I quarterback, and he's the starter. Okay. Do we have receivers? Yes. So what I figure the problem is the timing isn't there. We haven't worked together long enough. 10 yards down the field, 2 yards inside the numbers. That's what I remember from my playing days when I got to Cincinnati, and I kept wondering how these receivers were beating me, or how they run in that curl right, why they run this release the way that they do it. And what I learned from them was I have to get 10 yards down the field and 2 yards inside the numbers. That's where the ball is going to come. Now, not just because of timing, but that's where my spot or my area is.
Right.
Okay? And so if I can get that defensive back to lean on my back or to be in front of me, either way, I can beat him. But what we don't have is a connection. We don't have that go-to receiver. We don't have that go-to route. When we played, guess what? The whole stadium knew Dave Saunders or Sean Foreman was getting a fade right inside the 20.
Guaranteed.
And the whole stadium knew we were getting a touchdown because that was our route.
Yeah.
That's what we need. That's what we need. Go-to receiver, go-to route, third and whatever, fourth and whatever, first down.
Guys, you guys handled that question great. And in fact, I think, Christy, you kind of answered your own question. You pointed out a lot of things. You mentioned accuracy. However, as Gary correctly stated, it ain't about being uncoachable. It's just timing. You know, you got to think about what we have here. You got to think about Skylar Howard as a Drew Brees. The kid's about 5'11", if that. He ain't 6 feet, right? So he's not throwing over guys. He is looking for alleys. He's looking for windows to throw the ball, and that it's just a little timing thing. You know, I think the kid is very talented, and to compensate for some of that, the deep passes, the way they're selling on them, obviously that really comes down to the timing. I'm an old quarterback. I played quarterback in high school. If I'm dealing with a real quick receiver, I know I got to release that ball much quicker than I would for a guy who's running a 4.6 or a 4.7.
Right.
You got a guy running 4.3, 4.5, getting down that field. You got to let the ball go.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of these guys who we play with, especially the Miami guys, when we played against Miami, you know, when we talk about Gino Torretta and those guys, when you had T. Jones, them boys would just throw the ball up and just went to go get them. Right. They just go get it. You know, again, exactly. It's just timing. So, Christy, great question. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
So, guys, I'm going to share this with you. For people like Christy, and if I didn't get to your question, I do apologize. Keep sending them in, but I got something real sweet I want to tell you about that you got to pay close attention to. Last couple weeks, we've been doing a great job of getting emails in. I want to sweeten the pot. I want to put some money in your pocket. Obviously, we talk about going to our website and watching it, and we talk about getting emails from you. Now I want you to go and watch the show at thedpost.com. Click on the link and get to the YouTube post and start commenting there. Every week, we're going to assign members to you as you make comments, and we're going to randomly select the winner every week, and we're going to give you $100.
Ooh,
Did you get that, guy?
That's my number.
Every week, we want you to go to thedpost.com, check out the video, go to the YouTube portion of it, and comment. And you're going to be assigned a number, and every week from this show on, we're going to give someone $100. So again, we certainly appreciate you all sending in the emails. Now we want you to take it a step farther and comment on our YouTube site. Now, guys, as we mention every week here, we like to have people come to the show. So for those of you who are here in the audience, we want to ask you to submit a question to us. And for your question, we're going to give you some parting gifts. We're going to give you some of these cozies. So if you have a question, raise your hand. You'll get a football. Raise your hand, and we will get the mic to you. And you can ask your question. Our panel will do our very best to answer it the best way we can.
Yes, I do have a question. Is
Yes, sir.
Coach Holstron's house on the market now, or is he going to wait till after the Baylor game to put it on the market? And it is a two-parter.
So the question was Coach Hogan is going to put his house on the market after the Baylor game or before? I have an opinion about that because I've been hearing a lot about that, but I'll let our guys speak about it first, and I'll finish it up. If you would, Ed.
It's really hard to coach a team at this level. Right. You got a locker room full of guys, personalities, talent levels. You got to deal with the press and expectations. We can't be too judgmental at this point. I like Coach Holgerson. I think he's very good for the state and the Mountaineers. Right now, we're a little bit in a hole. But to say that he should be looking for a new property in another state, I think that's way too early right now. I'm going to rephrase this. I believe that we're going to surprise some people next week.
Good.
I really honestly believe historically when we go into somebody else's house, for some reason when they come into ours, we get a little, we let them move the furniture around. But when we get into somebody else's, house, we cause a lot of havoc. Good. And I think that's what we're going to see this week. Good. And I think Holgerson is going to be he's going to lead from the top.
Okay. Well, JT, we all work. We got families and stuff. I don't never want to see someone lose their job.
Right.
So I'm not going to really comment on him too much on that situation. I think he's doing his best. Unfortunately, things are not working out for him at this time. So I'm going to ride with him. I'm a West Virginia guy. West Virginia's been very good to me.
Yeah.
The university's been very good to me. So good luck. I know these boys are trying their best. They want to win. It's just not working out. So hopefully we can turn this thing all around this Saturday and get back on the right side of the ball.
Right. What you got, Gary?
I see plenty of issues with the team that I can comment on, but I don't know if it's just coaching or all coaching or whatever you want to be. I'm just going to treat that like a rhetorical question. I'm not going to comment on it.
Okay. All right.
Guys, as I mentioned, I got an opinion on that. Several years ago, when we got Coach Hogan, we realized he was one of the offensive geniuses throughout college football. Teams like Oklahoma State, teams like Texas Tech used his services and did quite well. Guys, it's a matter of time. We got to give the guy some time. He certainly knows what he's doing. The thing that, for me, in terms of the barometer or the gauge is how are the players quitting on him?
Right.
If the players are not quitting on the players are fighting tooth and nail for him, I think it's a matter of time. I think we got to be very cautious when we talk about coach moving on and things of that nature, because I've been around the Coach Hogan. I've been to his house. I've watched how he dealt with the players. He's very intimate with the players. The players have a level of respect for him. He has the common touch to be able to impact the kids' lives. Oftentimes people get annoyed about way coaches deal with players. I've heard a few comments about facial expressions and things of that nature. We're players. We're okay with being coached. So we're certainly okay with that. So again, I do have my opinion, and opinion is we let our guy ride and keep riding until the wheels fall off. He's a young guy. He's learning this deal in terms of the head coach, from a head coach perspective, but he is a good coach. And we've seen this with several coaches that have come from West Virginia. They go on and they do quite well. So I think that's a little premature. But good question, sir. Thank you for your question. Okay, any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I'm just curious. I'm kind of old school, and I kind of know some of you gentlemen from the past, and I'm wondering about what your feelings are on Coach Rich and Coach Kurlavich and good old Kurlav, and I'm sure you guys all know Kurlav.
Oh, yeah.
And
Too much.
Coach Castile. And I'm just wondering, what are you guys thinking? And do you think they'll ever be back?
Let me go first.
Go ahead.
I don't think there's a player that I know that came through these doors that we call our home and left not loving Coach Kalavich, okay? I get chills just talking about it because no matter what your situation was, the thing you love so much about Kalav is that he told you the truth. Sometimes you didn't want to hear it.
Absolutely.
A lot of times I didn't want to hear it, especially when I was coming from the buffet. I didn't want to hear him telling me about my weight again, but he told me the truth. But that level of honesty with him is he knew how to get the most out of a player because he was always tough on you. But at the end of the day, you knew that he cared about you and that when it came to football or just you needing anything, he always had your back. So again, I haven't experienced, and I've been, graduated for a long time, that I've ever heard one bad thing from a player about Kalavich. That's my experience with him. I'd love to see him back to ask you that question because I know that he loves this place, and I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision for him to leave.
Kalav was my defensive line coach. I've been over to his home. I know his wife, Maggie. She was a teacher at UHS, taught my son.
Yeah.
Love Kalav. I think everyone that coached under or played under Kalav, there's a endearment type factor that you really like this guy because he really liked you. Coach Castile, I didn't have the opportunity to play for Coach Castile, but I coached his son. I know his family very well, Rosie Castile, beautiful people. So Rich Rod, I didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with Coach Rodriguez. But that whole group of guys that left, that was a special group of guys. I would love to see them come back. But then again, sometimes in life you got to move on.
Yeah.
And he's having success in Arizona. Him and Mr. McGee, Coach McGee's out there with him as well. So he's found his new home. I think he's moved on. And we got to just move on with the future, right? And deal with what we have. You got a comment this time, man?
I love Coach Kalavich. I love Coach Kalavich. I love a lot of the coaches that I played here with, even as a grad assistant, had a chance to see. I have no real comment except that if it's for you, then you should be here. Other than that, if not, then you have to move on sometimes.
Yeah.
And what we may want may not be the same thing that they may want. All I want is the Mountaineers to do well, whoever comes in here and coaches.
That's it.
And so what I've always done, I've had the great fortune. I had the fortune of playing for Coach Don Nealon. I had the great fortune to have my son play for Coach Rod, also for Coach Stu. And I have a current relationship with the football team. And I've consistently said this from day one. When I came here in 1994, I said I'm a program guy, right? I like West Virginia. I want West Virginia to be successful in sports. Obviously, all our coaches do a great job of impacting us. They're certainly inspirational guys. No more so than anybody in terms of people like Coach Kalavich, Coach Castile, Coach Rod, anybody. I think when I think about Coach Hoaxson when he got here, I was really concerned he wasn't wearing any blue and gold early on. But then I started noticing he started evolving and spending time around him and doing those things. And I come to realize this. In college football, it starts to grow on you. These guys start having an affinity for not only the team, but the community, the state. I've seen some of those real close conversations, and I watched Coach Kalavich, my coach, Coach Dunlap, share some intimate stuff with me that inspired me to stay in West Virginia. So anytime a coach get involved with this program, I found a reason to just care a little bit more than I have. So, ma'am, that's a great question, and I continue. Hopefully, we continue to have good questions like that. We have time for one more question, I believe. One more question.
I was wondering if we cut down on the takeaways and we said at the beginning of the year we wanted to play physical football and that meant running the ball. But can you do that without a tight end and a fullback?
Great question. Great question. You want to start off, Tone?
Sure. I mean, well, of course, we want to get rid of the takeaways, no question about it. I think we talked about this earlier about as far as getting the tight end involved. But, it's called Smash Mouth football. Me and Gary talked about that. You can incorporate the tight end. And I know some other teams bring in two tights,
right?
Yeah. And run the ball. You know what I mean? But that's not what we are. You know, we're a little bit different as far as that. And me and JT talked about when I first came on the show, I like to go back to the fullback, to the tight end, Alex Shuckino and those guys that was here, Anthony Beck. But maybe that day is gone. Maybe that's not what we do anymore. So
yeah, well, it's hard. I guess we're old school.
I am.
I think we officially crossed that line to be old school.
Yep.
That level of football, that brand of football, I think is slowly dying.
Alabama kind of does it.
Alabama does it, and they do it to great effect.
Low scoring games,
yeah.
don't score a lot of points.
Yeah, it's ball control. You're not going to get a whole lot of points.
Right.
And you're going to be bloody at the end of the fourth quarter.
Right.
Okay, but that's the Nick Saban way. He's old school West Virginia guy, right?
Right.
So we know where he gets it from. So that we are air raid offense. Our goal is to try to put up 70 points. That was unheard of in our day.
Give me 40 points right now.
Yeah, give me 40.
Give me
40. I would love for us to get back to physical football. Love it. I just don't think that's in the scheme.
Okay.
Right.
Can you run without the tight ends? Yes. If you look at the Buffalo Bills teams from I think the early 90s, late 80s, 4 Super Bowls in a row, run and gun offense. And they had Thurman Thomas. The old OSU teams with Thurman Thomas and with Barry Sanders, both of them set records during their time there. The old Miami teams always had, even though they had quarterbacks like Gino Torretta and star wide receivers, they always had running game. Florida State still runs the ball with the running game. You can run without running. You just have to have physical offensive linemen, and you have to have a commitment to the run.
Yep.
Guys, I think, first of all, as Tony mentioned, your question in regard to the takeaways, it's a must. We have to slow down in terms of the takeaways. We got to be able to protect the football. So my thought process, and I'm pretty consistent with this, in regard to why you asked about that fullback and that tight end. I've come to realize, I've been here about 22 years, okay? And West Virginia, to me, is a blue-collar state, right? We like hard work, we like physicality, and when you think about tight ends and you think about fullbacks, those what those guys do. You think about Owen Smith. I know that's the first thing that pops in your head. You think about an Owen Smith or Mark Plants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those are the things that pop into your head. But yet, we're finding a way to do some of those things with less guys in terms of this air raid and spread offense. I think it's a different day. But I think they need to do like the old ball coach from South Carolina who talks about the days of old. And every now and again, throw that ball to the tight end. Do some sort of cut back or counter play. So, sir, I agree with the mindset in terms of, I know we're blue collar, we want to see those things. Just a matter of time that we may see them sprinkled in more, opposed to a scheme designed just for that particular play. We got one more?
I just would like to say thank you, JT. I know it was your idea, and all of you for wearing the pink ribbon for breast awareness.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you all.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Guys, we want to thank you all for coming out and watching us do what we love to do. I want to thank my host for continuing supporting this venture, because I think it's a great platform for us former players to kind of share what we think. I want to remind you to come out here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. We'll be here. Come check us out. And I do want to point out, as I guess just mentioned, we're wearing our pink ribbons for breast care awareness. And we want to certainly salute all the survivors and those who battle breast care. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Make sure you check us out online. And until next time, huddle up. There we go.